Hi guys, Nick Berry here from Seed Terminator. I've got a concept today that was brought to me by my cousin Josh Lade in Canada, who's running the Seed Terminator right now, and I think it sort of changes the way we need to be thinking about how we use the Seed Terminator and the header to destroy weed seeds. And the reference he was making was about wild oats and how shedding losses in wild oats limit its applicability to harvest weed seed control to drive down numbers. But one of the things that he'd noticed, and when he asked people in the industry, how does the wild oat population distribute across the paddock if the harvester's not capturing them? And everyone agrees that it is the harvester that's distributing. Those seeds are spreading up and down the rows of the machine. It's just that they're not capturing all of the seeds. So really, there's the truth in it is that it's not just about how many seeds you're capturing out of the total population. It's that you're moving the weeds. So you're moving some weeds regardless of how many seeds you capture. And it's all because of the internal mechanism of the machine. So the reason that a weed seed exits the harvester rather than ending up in the grain tank is because of a difference in the properties of that seed, and it's usually because it's lighter and blows out the back of the machine. But it's usually not that much lighter, depending on the species, that it goes straight out. Quite often what happens is it will go through the tailings return system. So, and it's quite obvious, I was driving a new S790 machine with the camera technology that looks at the tailings. And what I could see in there when I went through a patch of ryegrass is just a huge amount of ryegrass. So what does that mean? Well, it means that those seeds are going around and around in the harvester. So you harvest the seeds, they come into the machine, and then they go around and around in this tailing system, and slowly but surely are trickle feeded out of the back of the machine. So it's basically seeding the paddock over an extended period. So the weeds that you see coming into the front of the machine, they're not just getting distributed straight away, they're getting distributed over 500 metres. And in some cases, those seeds might hide in the machine. There's lots of little nooks and crannies, and they can just sit there until they get knocked the right way, and then they come out then. So to think that the seeds that go in the front are then going straight out the back, that's not what happens. And so really the game-changing thought here is that it's not just about reducing the numbers of weeds, it's about reducing the spread of patches of weeds. You know, how many fields are uniformly distributed with weeds? They've always got patches. So you're going from, basically, if you're going to normal harvest, you're going to go from a patch to an extended patch where the harvester, say this is our field, and we know that we've got some small patches here. You come along and harvest, and say you're going up and back this way. Well, the harvester might, spread these weeds right up and back like this, and really like that. If you're not capturing and destroying those seeds, or if you're chaff lining or tram lining, you're spreading those weeds up and down these rows because of the internal structure of the harvester. And it's, if I just do a dodgy harvester, so you've got your front here, cutting the crop off and the weeds off, they're going into the machine. Here's the cab. So they go into the machine, into the rotor, which is basically threshing out the crop, and then you've got a sieving system. So you've got your two sieves, your top sieve and your bottom sieve, and then you've got your clean grain and your tailings return. And so basically you've got, if you can thresh it out of the rotor, then that material is going to end up on the sieve. And what we find is those seeds, they still have a bit of weight in them, so we are finding that they don't just fly straight out of the back, but they quite often will go down into the tailings return, and then they go back up into the rotor, go back onto the sieve, and then because the machine is not changing the properties of those seeds, they just continually go over and over and over again in the machine. And you'll see that if you're driving through a weedy patch, quite often the tailings will just spike. In a wild oat patch, the tailings will spike, and you say, well, they've shed all their seeds, but no, they haven't shed all of their seeds. They've shed a proportion of their seeds, and those ones that are left are now going around and around the tailings return and are being spread up and down the field. So when you say a weed is not applicable for harvest weed seed control, well, we need to think about it not just in terms of the seeds that are being collected, because it'd be good to get all of those seeds into the machine, but if you're not going to get all of them, then the ones that we do get, we don't want to just be spreading them out up and down where we're harvesting, because of this tailings return system. So I think this patch of weed management, or the spatial management of weeds, is really key, and we need to be thinking about it in terms of, right, I'm not going to spread the patches that I do have. If I can keep this patch within this space and do what I can at harvest, and then I might be able to manage these weeds in a different way during the season. And ultimately, I think we just don't want to be using the harvest to spread the infestation further. Because imagine if there was herbicide resistance in that patch. Now all of a sudden it's in this patch, and then these individual weeds are going to grow, and then the patch becomes bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden it's over the whole field. So I think the number one thinking behind harvest weed seed control needs to shift from hitting the population balance, but to removing the spread of weed patches. Thanks, guys.